The night Victoria Hayes was stood up at Harvest Table, the restaurant's ambient lighting did little to hide the frustration tightening her jaw. She checked her phone for the 20th time in 45 minutes. No messages, no calls, nothing from the investment partner her assistant had arranged to meet. Another waste of a rare evening away from her office. Victoria signaled for the check, eager to escape the sympathetic glances from the waitstaff. The sommelier approached with practiced deference. Victoria, would she like to take the barely touched bottle of Bordeaux home? She declined with a tight smile. What she wanted couldn't be bottled or purchased a single evening where she wasn't Victoria Hayes, the cold-blooded CEO, the woman who built Hayes Technologies from nothing into an $11 billion empire. Just one night as someone normal. A commotion erupted near the entrance. A man in his early 30s with slightly disheveled dark hair was negotiating with the hostess while holding the hand of a little girl who looked about 6 years old. His deep voice carried across the hushed restaurant. Just a quick dessert at the bar. It's her birthday, and I promised her the chocolate cake here. Victoria watched as the hostess shook her head apologetically. Friday nights at Harvest Table were booked weeks in advance, a fact Victoria knew well, having pulled strings through her company to secure her own reservation. The little girl looked up at her father with wide eyes. It's okay, Daddy. We can go somewhere else. She tugged at his hand, but disappointment shadowed her small face. Victoria felt something shift inside her chest, a feeling almost foreign after years of ruthless business decisions. Before she could think twice, she stood up. Excuse me, she called out. You can join me if you'd like. I have a table for two and it seems my companion isn't going to show. The man turned, surprise evident on his face. He hesitated, his eyes cautious yet hopeful. That's very kind, but we wouldn't want to impose. Not at all. Victoria extended her hand, noticing his strong jawline and the kind eyes that crinkled slightly at the corners. I'm Tori. She offered her nickname without thinking, the one unused since college before Hayes Technologies, before the billions. Jack Miller. And this is my daughter, Emma. He shook her hand firmly, his grip honest and unpretentious. Are you sure we're not interrupting? You look like you were just leaving. Absolutely sure. In fact, you'd be saving me from the embarrassment of dining alone after being stood up. Victoria surprised herself with the candor, the small vulnerability she rarely showed. Emma climbed onto the chair opposite Victoria, her curious eyes taking in everything from Victoria's simple but elegant black dress to her minimal jewelry. Someone was mean to you. That's not nice. Her indignation was sincere, her small brow furrowed in concern for a complete stranger. Victoria couldn't help but smile, a real smile that reached her eyes. No, it's not nice at all. But now I get to have dinner with you instead, and that seems like a much better evening. She meant it, the words flowing naturally without calculation or agenda, a rarity in her world of strategic communications and negotiated phrases. Jack sat down next to his daughter, his expression a mix of gratitude and lingering uncertainty. This is unexpected. I promised Emma chocolate cake because she got a gold star in school today. His pride in his daughter was evident, warming his voice. Well, that certainly deserves a celebration. Victoria caught the waiter's eye and gestured for menus. As they arrived, she noticed Jack's slight grimace when he glanced at the prices. Without missing a beat, she added, This is my treat. I insist as a thank you for saving me from a lonely dinner. We can't let you do that. Ooh. His refusal was immediate, a matter of principle rather than politeness. Victoria recognized the pride in his stance, respected it even as she formulated a workaround. My company has an expense account for client dinners, and since my client canceled, it would be a shame to waste it. The lie slipped out easily, a small deception that seemed harmless in the moment. There was no client, just a blind date, and the bill would come from her personal account, a drop in the ocean of her fortune. Jack seemed to relax slightly, though a hint of dignity still straightened his shoulders. All right, but only if you let me get the tip. Victoria nodded, admiring his insistence on contributing something. Emma, oblivious to the adult negotiations, was already engrossed in the children's menu. Look, Daddy, they have mac and cheese shaped like stars. Her excitement over something so simple struck Victoria, whose childhood had been filled with extravagance that quickly lost its luster. Dinner progressed with surprising ease. Jack explained that he worked as a high school English teacher and coached the wrestling team. He'd been raising Emma alone since his wife died from complications during childbirth. The pain was evident in his eyes when he mentioned her, but there was also tremendous love when he looked at his daughter. Emma is my whole world, he said, simply ruffling her hair as she devoured her star-shaped pasta. Victoria found herself captivated by this man who spoke about literature with passion and treated his daughter with such tenderness and respect. When asked about herself, Victoria kept her answers vague. She worked in investment management. Her hours were flexible, and she had recently moved back to the city after traveling for work. What she didn't mention was that she was Victoria Hayes, founder and CEO of Hayes Technologies, a company she'd built from the ground up that had revolutionized renewable energy storage and was now valued at over $11 billion. She didn't mention the 3 homes she owned, the private jet, or the fact that she could buy this entire restaurant without blinking. For one night, she was just Tori, a woman enjoying dinner with a kind man and his adorable daughter. When Emma's chocolate cake arrived with a candle, both Victoria and Jack sang happy birthday, causing the little girl to beam with delight. Make a wish, Victoria encouraged. Emma closed her eyes tight, then blew out the candle with gusto. I'm not telling what I wished for, or it won't come true, she declared with the seriousness only a 6-year-old could muster. As the evening wound down, Jack insisted on leaving the tip, a generous amount that Victoria suspected might have been more than he could comfortably afford, but she respected his need to contribute. Thank you again, he said as they stood outside the restaurant. This was really nice. The sincerity in his voice touched something in Victoria that expensive business dinners and society events never reached. It was my pleasure, truly. Victoria found herself reluctant to say goodbye. Emma tugged on her hand, her small fingers warm against Victoria's palm. Do you like the playground? We're going to the big one in Central Park tomorrow. Her eyes were bright with hope for another encounter. Emma. Jack's gentle admonishment carried no real reprimand. I'm sure Tori has plans. Victoria hesitated only briefly. Actually, I don't. What time will you be there? The surprise on Jack's face quickly gave way to a warm smile that made Victoria's heart beat a little faster. Around noon. If that works, it's perfect. I'll see you both then. As Victoria watched them walk away, Jack holding his daughter's hand, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. A lightness, a genuine connection untainted by power dynamics or hidden agendas. She slipped into the back of her waiting town car, careful to make sure Jack and Emma had turned the corner first. Home, Ms. Hayes, her driver asked. Yes, please, James. She leaned back against the leather seat, already looking forward to tomorrow, a sensation so unfamiliar, it took her a moment to recognize it as simple happiness. The contrast between her world struck her as the car pulled up to her Upper East Side mansion. The doorman greeted her with practiced deference as she entered the marble foyer. The space was immaculate, decorated by the city's top designer, yet it had never felt like home, just a showcase for her success. Victoria kicked off her heels and padded to her home office. She hadn't planned to work tonight, but old habits died hard. Notifications crowded her phone, 3 messages from her executive team, an alert about market fluctuations in Asia, and a reminder about tomorrow's board meeting. She ignored them all, something she never did, and instead found herself searching for Jack Miller online. A few clicks revealed his profile on the Westside High School website. English department, wrestling coach, faculty advisor for the literary magazine. A man grounded in community and service. No social media presence, to speak of another rarity in this digital age. Victoria felt a strange relief at that. It meant he was unlikely to have encountered much about her online either. Her phone rang, her assistant Megan, the only person who might call this late. Victoria hesitated before answering. Everything okay with the Singapore deal? Megan's voice was crisp, professional. Yes, all finalized. But there's something else. Trevor Matthews just announced a breakthrough in solid-state battery technology. It's all over the tech news. Victoria felt her stomach tighten. Trevor Matthews, her former fiancé, the man who'd left her when Hayes Technologies was still a struggling startup, claiming he couldn't hitch his future to her unrealistic ambitions. Now he headed a rival firm, their competition as personal as it was professional. How significant is the breakthrough? Victoria moved to her computer, pulling up the business news sites. Significant enough. Early reports suggest 30% more efficiency than our current models. Stock analysts are already speculating. Megan's concern was evident even through her professional tone. Victoria scanned the article that featured Trevor's smug face alongside graphs predicting market shifts. Have the team prepare a comprehensive analysis for tomorrow's meeting. We'll need to accelerate the Jensen project. Her mind shifted into strategic mode, calculating moves and counter moves in the corporate chess game she'd mastered. Only after hanging up did Victoria realize how completely she'd switched from Tori back to Victoria Hayes, CEO. The warm glow from dinner faded as reality reasserted itself. What was she thinking arranging to meet Jack and Emma tomorrow? Their worlds couldn't be more different. She should cancel, make up an excuse, end this before it began. Yet when she picked up her phone, she found herself unable to craft the message. The memory of Emma's hopeful face and Jack's genuine smile stopped her fingers on the screen. One day out in the park wouldn't hurt anyone. She could be Tori for a few more hours before returning fully to Victoria's world of corporate warfare and billion-dollar decisions. The next morning, Victoria woke earlier than usual, her typical efficiency replaced with an unfamiliar nervousness as she considered what to wear to a playground. Her closet filled with power suits and designer dresses suddenly seemed inadequate for a casual day in the park. She finally settled on jeans, a simple blouse, and flats, items she kept for the rare weekend when she wasn't representing Hayes Technologies at some function. The outfit felt like a costume, a disguise to hide in plain sight. Victoria hesitated before her mirror, removing her signature watch and replacing it with a simple silver bracelet. The woman staring back at her looked softer, somehow younger than the steel-eyed CEO whose photo graced the cover of Business Weekly last month. She instructed her driver to drop her off 2 blocks from the playground entrance. As she approached, she spotted Jack and Emma immediately. Emma was attempting the monkey bars with Jack standing below, ready to catch her if she fell. "You're doing great, Soph. Just one more bar," he encouraged. Emma's face was a mask of determination as she reached for the final rung. When she made it, Jack scooped her up in a celebratory hug that made Victoria's heart swell with an emotion she couldn't quite name. Emma spotted her first wriggling out of her father's arms to race over. "You came? Did you see me on the monkey bars? I did it all by myself." Her excitement was contagious, her small face flushed with pride. "I did see. That was amazing," Victoria said, genuinely impressed. Jack approached more slowly, a smile playing on his lips. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come." The slight surprise in his voice suggested he was accustomed to people breaking promises. "I said I would," Victoria replied simply, feeling an unexpected need to prove herself trustworthy to this man who expected so little. The afternoon unfolded in a series of simple pleasures that Victoria had all but forgotten existed. Pushing Emma on the swings, the little girl's delighted squeals each time she went higher. Watching her navigate the climbing structure, her small face serious with concentration. Sitting on a bench, talking with Jack, while Emma made friends with other children. "So what happened to your date last night?" Jack asked, eventually his tone casual, but his eyes attentive. Victoria shrugged. "It was a blind date arranged by my assistant. I guess he took one look through the window and decided to bail." The truth was easier than fabricating a story about a fictional client. Jack shook his head. His loss. Seriously. The sincerity in his voice made her cheeks warm in a way board meetings and investor confrontations never did. "What about you? Do you date much?" The question slipped out before she could consider its implications. Between teaching, coaching, and Emma, not really. He watched his daughter playing tag with a group of kids. "It's been just the 2 of us for so long. I'm not sure I remember how dating works." "You're doing fine so far," Victoria said, surprising herself with her boldness. Jack turned to look at her, a question in his eyes that made her heart beat faster. Before he could speak, Emma came running over, breathless and flushed. "I'm hungry. Can we get hot dogs?" The moment dissolved, but the current of possibility remained. They bought hot dogs from a vendor and sat on a park bench to eat. Victoria couldn't remember the last time she'd had a street hot dog, probably not since college before her company took off. It tasted better than any 5-star meal she'd had recently. As the afternoon wore on, Emma's energy began to wane. She curled up against Jack's side, her eyelids growing heavy. "I think someone's ready for a nap," Jack said softly, his arm protectively around his daughter. "We should probably head home." Disappointment settled in Victoria's chest, but she nodded. "Of course." But Jack hesitated, seeming to weigh something in his mind. "Maybe we could do this again." His eyes met hers. "Maybe without the playground next time. Just you and me." Victoria smiled, a flutter of anticipation in her stomach. "I'd like that." They exchanged phone numbers, and Jack programmed hers into his phone under simply Tori. No last name, no company affiliation, just Tori. It felt refreshing, like slipping out of too tight shoes after a long day. As Victoria watched them leave, Jack carrying a sleepy Emma, she felt torn between two worlds. The world she'd built with ruthless determination of board meetings and billion-dollar decisions, and this new possibility of simple joy found on a park bench with a man who knew nothing of her empire. Her phone buzzes. A text from Megan. Emergency board call in 30 minutes, re Matthew's announcement. Victoria sighed, reality intruding. She texted back a confirmation and hailed a cab. The driver recognized her immediately. Mrs. Hayes, an honor to have you in my cab. Should I take you to Hayes Tower? His eager deference was a sharp contrast to Jack's straightforward treatment. Yes, please. Victoria slipped her CEO mask back on her mind, already shifting to the coming confrontation with her board. They would be panicking about Trevor's announcement demanding immediate action. She would need to be the calm, strategic leader they expected. Not the woman who had just spent the afternoon pushing a 6-year-old on a swing. The Hayes Technologies headquarters dominated the skyline, a gleaming testament to Victoria's vision and relentless drive. As she entered the executive elevator, employees nodded respectfully, their eyes lowering when she looked their way. The weight of being Victoria Hayes settled back on her shoulders, familiar and heavy. The boardroom fell silent as she entered. 8 men and 3 women in expensive suits looked to her for reassurance for the leadership that had turned their investments into fortunes. Victoria took her place at the head of the table, her casual park clothes replaced by an emergency suit kept in her office. Before we begin, I've reviewed the Matthews announcement, she said, her voice cool and controlled. It's significant but not catastrophic. Their solid-state technology shows promise, but faces substantial manufacturing hurdles. We've been anticipating this move. She nodded to her CTO, who began presenting the accelerated timeline for their own competing technology. As the meeting progressed, Victoria was fully present, steering the discussion with the strategic brilliance that had built her empire. Yet somewhere in the back of her mind, she kept seeing Jack's genuine smile, feeling Emma's small hand in hers. 2 worlds that seemed impossible to reconcile. After the meeting, Megan followed her into her office. The board's reassured for now. You always know exactly what to say to them. She placed a stack of documents requiring signatures on Victoria's desk. Victoria nodded absently, her mind elsewhere. Megan, tell me something. When was the last time I took a day off, a real day, not working from a different location? Megan blinked, surprised by the question. Honestly, I can't remember. Maybe 3 years ago when you had the flu. Even then you took calls from your bedroom. That's what I thought. Victoria signed the documents mechanically. Clear my schedule this Saturday, would you? The whole day. Megan's shock was evident. The request was unprecedented. Yes, the whole day, personal time. Victoria didn't elaborate, and Megan knew better than to ask. As her assistant left, Victoria found herself staring out at the city sprawled below her office, wondering which neighborhood Jack and Emma called home. Wondering if she could really keep these worlds separate or if the collision was inevitable. Over the next few weeks, Victoria lived a double life. By day, she was the formidable CEO driving her company forward, countering Trevor's announcement with an accelerated innovation timeline that kept shareholders confident. But evenings and weekends increasingly belonged to Tori, the woman who met Jack for coffee after his teaching day, who joined him and Emma for dinner at modest restaurants where she insisted they split the bill, though she could have bought the entire block. They settled into a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. Jack never asked about Tori's work beyond the basics, and she found herself grateful for his lack of curiosity. For once, someone was interested in her. Not her money, not her company, just her. She learned that Jack had grown up in a blue-collar family, the first to attend college, working construction each summer to pay tuition. He spoke of books with a passion that made them come alive, quoted Hemingway and Austen with equal reverence. His wrestling team had become a second family, the boys looking to him for guidance that extended far beyond the mat. Victoria found herself sharing parts of herself she'd kept hidden for years. Her childhood in a middle-class neighborhood in Connecticut, her parents' initial disappointment when she abandoned medical school for the uncertain world of tech startups. She spoke of her early vision for energy storage solutions and carefully editing out the billions that vision had eventually generated. With each meeting, each shared laugh, each glimpse into Jack's life with Emma, Victoria felt herself falling deeper into a connection that both thrilled and terrified her. She was building a relationship on a foundation of omission, if not outright deception. Yet the thought of revealing herself as Victoria Hayes' tech billionaire made her stomach clench with fear. Would Jack look at her differently? Would the genuine man she was coming to care for deeply suddenly see her as a walking bank account rather than a woman? One evening after they had put Emma to bed, following a movie night at Jack's modest apartment in Brooklyn, they sat on his worn couch, glasses of wine in hand. "You're amazing with her," Jack said quietly. "She adores you. The way you listen to her, really listen, most adults don't do that with kids." "The feeling is mutual. She's a special kid." Victoria meant it. Emma's intelligence, her curiosity, her openness had captivated her from the first meeting. "It's more than that. You treat her like a person, not just a child." He set his glass down, his expression serious. "Do you want children someday?" The question caught Victoria off guard. In her world of board meetings and investment decisions, family planning had always seemed like a distant concept, something for someday when her company was established. Now at 32 with an empire built, the question hit differently. "I've never really thought about it," she admitted. "My work has always been all-consuming. The mysterious job you never talk about," Jack teased gently, but there was a question beneath the lightness. Victoria shifted uncomfortably. "It's not that interesting. Everything about you is interesting." He moved closer, his hand finding hers. "Tori, I know we haven't known each other long, but I feel like I've been waiting to meet you." The sincerity in his voice made her breath catch. When he leaned in to kiss her, she met him halfway. His lips were soft, his touch gentle yet confident. It felt right in a way nothing had in a very long time. When they broke apart, Jack's eyes searched hers, finding something that made him smile. "I should probably tell you something," he said. Victoria tensed, preparing herself for whatever revelation might come. "I looked you up online," he admitted. "After our second date, I was curious." Her heart sank. "And what did you find?" "Nothing," he said, looking puzzled, which is strange in this day and age. "No social media, no LinkedIn, nothing. It's like you're a ghost." Relief washed over her. Her team was thorough in managing her digital footprint, keeping personal information scrubbed from public view. The Victoria Hayes who appeared in business publications and at industry events was carefully separated from her private life. "I'm not big on social media," she said simply. Jack laughed. "Clearly. It's refreshing, actually. Most people are living their lives online these days." He kissed her again, and Victoria let herself sink into the moment, pushing away the voice that reminded her she was building this relationship on a foundation of omission, if not outright deception. This happiness, this connection, it felt too precious to risk. As weeks turned into months, Victoria found herself increasingly divided between her worlds. The more time she spent with Jack and Emma, the more she questioned the life she'd built as Victoria Hayes. The relentless drive, the isolation at the top, the relationships based on what she could provide rather than who she was, all of it seemed hollow compared to evenings spent helping Emma with homework or discussing literature with Jack. Yet her company needed her more than ever. Trevor's announcement had indeed shifted market perceptions, and maintaining investor confidence required Victoria's full attention. She canceled meetings with Jack twice due to work emergencies, offering vague explanations that she could tell left him confused but too respectful to press. The situation came to a head during a weekend at the American Museum of Natural History with Jack and Emma. As they explored the dinosaur exhibits, Emma running ahead in excitement, Victoria spotted Charles Winthrop, one of her major investors, approaching with his family. Panic surged through her. Charles knew her well. There would be no avoiding recognition. "Jack, would you mind getting Emma some water? I think she's getting overheated," Victoria suggested quickly, her heart racing. Jack nodded and headed toward the drinking fountains, taking Emma's hand. The moment they were out of earshot, Victoria stepped directly into Charles's path. "Charles, what a surprise. Here with the grandkids." Her CEO voice was back, confident and commanding. Victoria Charles's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Yes, weekend grandpa duty. What brings you here?" "I didn't think museums were your scene unless they were naming a wing after you." He chuckled at his own joke. "Research, actually. Looking at some educational initiatives the company might support." She kept her body angled to block his view of Jack and Emma, who were now at the water fountain. "Always working, aren't you? That's why Hayes Technologies stays on top." He glanced at his watch. "We should set up a lunch next week. I have some thoughts on the Matthews situation." Have your office call, Megan Victoria said smoothly, already edging away. Enjoy your weekend, Charles. She managed to guide Charles and his family toward a different exhibit before rejoining Jack and Emma, her heart still pounding. That was close. Too close. Who was that? Jack asked as they continued through the museum. You looked like you knew him. Victoria's mind raced for a plausible explanation. Just someone I know through work. Investment circles are surprisingly small in New York. The half-truth tasted bitter on her tongue. Jack nodded, accepting her explanation without question, his trust another weight on her conscience. As they finished their museum tour, Victoria found herself increasingly distracted, the close call highlighting the precariousness of her double life. How long could she maintain this deception? And what would happen when not if, but when the truth emerged? The answer came sooner than she expected. 3 days later, Victoria was having breakfast with Jack and Emma on a rare weekday morning. She'd cleared her calendar for Emma's school science fair that afternoon when her secure phone buzzed with the emergency code. I'm sorry I have to take this, she said, stepping away from the table. Her CFO's voice was tight with stress. Victoria, the Singapore markets are in free fall. Our Asia division needs direction immediately. The board is assembling for an emergency call in 30 minutes. I'll send the details to your tablet. I'll be there. Have the jet ready. She ended the call and returned to the table where Emma was explaining the intricacies of her school's upcoming science fair to her father. Everything okay? Jack asked, concern evident in his expression. Work emergency. I'm so sorry, but I have to go. She gathered her purse and already shifting to crisis management mode. Jack looked surprised. On a Wednesday morning, your investment firm needs you that urgently. It's international business, different time zones, she explained vaguely, hating each evasion. I'm sorry to miss hearing about your science project, Emma. She kissed the top of Emma's head, the child's disappointment evident in her downturned mouth. Will you tell me all about it when I get back? When will that be? Jack asked as he walked Victoria to the door. His confusion was understandable. What kind of mid-level investment manager gets emergency calls requiring immediate attention? I'm not sure. A few days, maybe a week. She couldn't meet his eyes. I'll call when I can. His confusion deepened to concern. A week, Tori, what exactly do you do? This doesn't sound like typical investment work. It's complicated. I'll explain everything when I get back. I promise. She kissed him quickly, guilt and anxiety churning in her stomach. I have to go. The next 12 days were a blur of emergency meetings, market stabilization efforts, and around-the-clock strategy sessions. The Singapore crisis was worse than anticipated, requiring Victoria's physical presence first there, then in Hong Kong. She called Jack when she could brief conversations that left him more confused than reassured. You're in Asia, he asked during one late-night call, the disbelief evident in his voice. For an investment job? It's complicated, she repeated, hating how evasive she sounded. So you keep saying, he replied, his patience clearly wearing thin. By the time Victoria returned to New York, nearly 2 weeks had passed. She texted Jack from the airport asking if she could come over. His reply was simple. We're home. When she knocked on his apartment door, it was Emma who answered, her face lighting up. Tori, you're back. Did you bring me something from your trip? Victoria's heart sank. She hadn't even thought to buy souvenirs, her mind consumed with corporate fires and market stabilization. I'm sorry, sweetie. It was all work, no shopping. Jack appeared behind his daughter, his expression guarded. Welcome back. The coolness in his voice stung. Can we talk? Victoria asked quietly. He nodded toward the living room. Emma, honey, can you play in your room for a bit? But Tori just got here, the little girl protested, her disappointment palpable. Just for a little while, please. Jack's gentle firmness left no room for argument. Emma reluctantly retreated, casting glances over her shoulder. When they were alone, Jack crossed his arms. So are you going to tell me what's really going on? Because investment analysts don't typically jet off to Asia at a moment's notice for weeks at a time. Victoria took a deep breath, the moment she'd been dreading finally upon her. You're right, I haven't been completely honest with you. She watched as his expression darkened. Are you married, is that it? The accusation startled her. What? No, nothing like that. Then what? Because I've been racking my brain trying to figure out why someone would be so secretive about their job. I'm not just an investment analyst. She paused, then decided to rip off the bandage. I'm the founder and CEO of Hayes Technologies. Jack stared at her blankly. It's a tech company, she continued. We specialize in renewable energy storage solutions. Recognition dawned slowly on his face. Wait, Hayes Technologies. The Hayes Technologies that's always in the business news, the billion-dollar company. 11 billion as of last quarter. She confirmed quietly, watching his face carefully. Jack sank onto the couch, visibly processing. You're a billionaire. His voice had a hollow quality that broke her heart. Yes. And you let me pay for coffee. You let me leave those tips at restaurants. His incredulity stung, though she understood it. I wanted you to see me, not my money. She sat beside him, not touching, but close. From the moment we met, you treated me like a person, not a bank account or a business connection. Do you know how rare that is in my world? But you lied to me, I omitted. I never directly lied. Even to her own ears, the distinction sounded weak. Lies of omission are still lies, Tori. Jack's jaw tightened. Or should I call you Victoria? I'm an English teacher. I understand semantics. Victoria felt her carefully constructed world crumbling. Did you think I'd treat you differently if I knew? That I would try to take advantage of you? It wasn't about that. She struggled to articulate feelings she'd barely acknowledged to herself. People always want something from me. Always. Business deals, investments, donations, connections. Nobody ever just wants me. I wanted you, he said quietly. Just you. The past tense wasn't lost on Victoria. And now Jack ran a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. I don't know. I feel like I don't even know who you are. I'm the same person who pushed Emma on the swings, who discussed Hemingway with you for hours, who kissed you on this couch. She reached for his hand. The money doesn't change who I am, but it changes things between us. He pulled his hand away. You live in a world I can't even imagine. Private jets and emergency board meetings in Asia. Meanwhile, I'm saving up for Emma's college fund and worrying about the rent increase next year. Those things don't matter to me. They should. They're reality. My reality. He stood up, pacing the small living room. And what about Emma? She's gotten attached to you. What happens when your world pulls you away again? When you disappear for weeks at a time with barely a phone call? The accusation stung because there was truth in it. I'm sorry about that. The crisis caught me off guard. I should have communicated better. Yes, you should have. His voice softened slightly. Look, I need some time to process this. It's a lot to take in. Victoria nodded, fighting back tears. I understand. Daddy Emma's small voice came from the hallway where she stood in her doorway. Why are you mad at Tori? Jack's expression immediately gentled. I'm not mad, sweetie. We're just having a grown-up talk. You sound mad. Emma approached cautiously. Is Tori leaving again? The hurt in the child's eyes was almost too much for Victoria to bear. I should go, she said quietly to Jack. Give you space to think. She knelt down to Emma's level, her heart breaking at the thought of losing this child she'd grown to love. I need to go home now, but I'm not disappearing again. I promise. Pinky promise. Mama held out her tiny finger, her eyes serious. Victoria linked her pinky with Emma's. Pinky promise. As she left the apartment, the weight of what she might lose pressed heavily on her chest. She had finally found someone who saw her for herself, and her own secrets might have ruined everything. The town car waited at the curb, James opening the door with practiced efficiency. Where to, Miss Hayes' home or the office? Victoria stared out at Jack's modest apartment building, a world away from her mansion and corporate tower. Home, please, James, just home. As the car pulled away, Victoria felt tears sliding down her cheeks, the first she'd allowed herself in years. She had built an empire, revolutionized an industry, amassed a fortune most could only dream of. Yet sitting alone in the back of her luxury car, she had never felt poorer. For 3 days, Victoria buried herself in work, the familiar refuge of spreadsheets and strategic planning, offering cold comfort against the void Jack's absence had created. Hayes Tower hummed with the usual corporate energy employees scurrying out of her path as she strode through hallways, her expression harder than usual. The Singapore crisis had been contained, but its aftershocks rippled through the company's Asian markets, demanding her constant attention. Or so she told herself as she worked past midnight, her corner office overlooking a Manhattan that never slept much, like herself these days. Megan placed a fresh coffee on Victoria's desk, concern etching her features. You haven't left the building in 72 hours. There's dedication, and then there's whatever this is. The personal observation from her typically professional assistant underscored the abnormality of Victoria's current behavior. Victoria stared at market projections without seeing them. Anything from legal about the Matthews patent challenge? The deflection was transparent, but Megan allowed it. Nothing new. They're confident his breakthrough won't affect our core technology patents. But that's not why you're camping out in your office, is it? Megan had been with Victoria since the early days before the billions, before the power. She was perhaps the only person who could speak to Victoria without calculation or agenda. Victoria's fingers stilled on her keyboard. I met someone, and I lied to him about who I am. Now he knows, and I might have lost him. The admission felt like ripping off a bandage, painful but necessary. Megan's eyebrows rose slightly, the only indication of her surprise. The man from the restaurant, the one with the little girl? Victoria nodded, surprised that Megan had made the connection from the minimal information she'd shared weeks ago. How did you... You've taken more personal time in the last 3 months than in the previous 5 years combined, and you smile at your phone when it buzzes with certain messages? Doesn't take a genius. Megan's perceptiveness was one reason she'd survived so long as Victoria's right hand. He's a teacher, a high school English teacher and wrestling coach. Victoria almost laughed at how absurd it sounded when spoken aloud in her executive suite. His daughter is 6. They live in a 2-bedroom walk-up in Brooklyn. When I'm with them, I'm just a person, not Victoria Hayes, CEO of an $11 billion company. Just Tori. The diminutive felt foreign in this space where she'd always been Ms. Hayes or Victoria Never, the casual nickname of her pre-fame life. Megan nodded understanding without judgment. And he found out the truth when you disappeared to Singapore. Victoria swiveled her chair to face the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights blurring as she blinked back unexpected tears. He thinks I lied because I didn't trust him, that I thought he'd try to take advantage. But it wasn't that. I just wanted to be normal for once, Megan finished for her. To have someone see you, not your bank account or your influence. Victoria turned back, meeting Megan's gaze. How do I fix this? The question hung in the air, vulnerable and uncharacteristic from a woman who always had answers, who built solutions from nothing. Megan considered for a moment. Maybe the same way you built this company, with honesty, determination, and the willingness to take a risk that matters. She gathered empty coffee cups from Victoria's desk. But first, go home and shower. You're the most powerful woman in tech, not a college student pulling an all-nighter. The gentle admonishment broke through Victoria's spiral, drawing a reluctant smile. Get out of my office before I remember I'm your boss. The exchange felt normal grounding when everything else seemed to be shifting beneath her feet. Back at her mansion, Victoria moved through empty rooms that had never felt quite so cavernous before. The cleaning staff had been and gone, leaving everything immaculate and soulless. She passed Emma's drawings, now framed on her study wall, colorful crayon creations given freely without knowledge of the wealth that surrounded them. The simple art held more value to Victoria than the original Rothko hanging in her dining room. She picked up her phone, composing and deleting messages to Jack. Every attempt sounded hollow or desperate. How could she compress the complexity of her deception, her fears, her hopes into a text message? She needed to see him to explain face to face. But he'd asked for space, and she owed him at least that much respect. Sleep eluded her as it had since leaving Jack's apartment. Victoria found herself in her home theater at 3 a.m., scrolling through news feeds rather than watching any of the thousands of films at her disposal. A headline caught her eye, sending ice through her veins. Tech Titan's secret romance, Hayes Technologies CEO spotted with unknown man and child. The article was buried in the gossip section of a minor tech blog, but it existed. Someone had noticed. Someone had photographed them at the museum that day. The image was grainy, taken from a distance, Victoria kneeling next to Emma at the dinosaur exhibit, Jack standing protectively nearby. Their faces were unclear, but Victoria recognized the moment immediately. She called Megan despite the hour. Kill this, now, all copies, all servers. Her voice was pure CEO commanding and brooking no argument. Already on it. Our media team flagged it an hour ago, but Victoria, there might be others. The photographer could have more images. We should prepare a statement just in case. Megan's efficiency was admirable, even awakened in the dead of night. No statements, no acknowledgement. This disappears completely. Victoria ended the call, her mind racing. The article hadn't identified Jack or Emma, but it wouldn't take much for someone to connect the dots, especially if more photos existed. The thought of Jack and Emma being hounded by paparazzi, their lives upended because of her, made her physically ill. Morning brought a new crisis. Trevor Matthews had called a press conference supposedly to announce further developments in his solid-state battery technology. Victoria watched from her office as he took the podium, his practiced smile triggering memories of their past relationship. "We're not just announcing a technological breakthrough today," Trevor's smooth voice carried through the live stream. "We're announcing a philosophy." While some tech companies build walls between themselves and the world, isolating their leadership in ivory towers, Matthews Energy believes in transparency and community integration. "Our executives live real lives among real people, not hidden behind security details and corporate facades." The barb was thinly veiled, aimed directly at Victoria's notorious privacy. Trevor had always resented her insistence on keeping their relationship out of the public eye years ago. Now he was weaponizing it against her company. Victoria's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We should talk." The brevity and lack of identification told her exactly who it was, Trevor himself, watching her reaction in real time. The arrogance of it, the presumption that she would respond to his summons, ignited a familiar fire in her belly. This was the battlefield she knew, where strategies and counter-strategies played out for billions in market capitalization. This at least she could fight. She drafted a press release immediately announcing Hayes Technologies' new educational initiative, a multi-million-dollar program, bringing cutting-edge technology labs to underfunded schools nationwide. Let Trevor play his games with veiled insults. She would respond with action, with something that actually mattered. The first school on the list, Westside High, where Jack taught English and coached wrestling. The decision brought momentary satisfaction, followed quickly by doubt. Would Jack see it as a genuine initiative, or as Victoria trying to buy her way back into his life? The blurred line between her personal and professional motivations unsettled her. For the first time in her career, Victoria questioned her own judgment, her ability to separate emotion from strategy. By afternoon, the minor blog post had indeed disappeared, but Victoria's paranoia remained. She called her head of security to her office. "I need a full assessment of privacy vulnerabilities regarding my personal activities outside the company. Any potential leaks, any staff who might talk to the press, any photographers who might be following me. And I need a security protocol for protecting the privacy of associates who may be with me." The security chief, a former military officer who'd been with Victoria for 5 years, nodded without expression. "Anyone in particular we should be focusing protective detail on, Ms. Hayes?" Victoria hesitated, then pulled up Jack's faculty photo from the Westside High website. Jack Miller, English teacher at Westside High School in Brooklyn, and his daughter Emma Miller, 6 years old. "I don't want them approached, surveilled, or made aware of any security presence, but I need to know they're protected from media intrusion." The admission felt both necessary and invasive, another decision made about Jack's life without his knowledge or consent. As the security chief left with his new assignment, Victoria stared at Jack's photo on her screen. The honest eyes, the slight smile that hinted at his dry humor. She'd compromised his privacy by entering his life under false pretenses. Now she was taking further steps affecting him without permission. The ethical tangle was growing more complex with each decision. Her phone rang. "Megan again. Matthews is making moves. He's approached 3 of our major investors with private meetings in the past 4 hours." Victoria felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with corporate warfare. Trevor was attempting to undermine investor confidence, perhaps setting up for a hostile action. "Set up calls with all our institutional investors. I'll handle them personally. No one poaches from my company." She was back on familiar ground, the certainty of battle clarifying her thoughts. This at least she knew how to win. The calls consumed her evening, each investor needing personal reassurance about Hayes Technologies' market position and innovation pipeline. Victoria was at her persuasive best, the charismatic visionary who had turned their millions into billions. By midnight, she was confident the immediate threat had been contained. As she prepared to finally leave her office, Victoria's private line rang, the number only a handful of people possessed. She answered warily. Trevor's voice poured through the speaker, smooth as aged whiskey. Been a while, Vicky. I see you've been busy putting out the fires, I started. The familiar nickname, one she'd always hated, one only he had used, sent a wave of revulsion through her. What do you want, Trevor? She kept her voice ice-cold professional. Just checking in on an old friend. Those investors seemed pretty receptive to my pitch until you worked your magic. Always were good at making people believe in you, until they get too close. His insinuation hung in the air between them. If you have a business proposition, schedule it through my office. Otherwise, don't call this number again. Victoria moved to end the call, but Trevor's next words froze her finger above the screen. I saw the pictures, you know. You with the teacher and his kid, playing happy families in the museum. Quite the departure from the Victoria Hayes everyone knows. His tone was casual, conversational, but the threat beneath it was unmistakable. Victoria's heart hammered against her ribs. What pictures? The denial was automatic, though she knew exactly what he meant. Don't insult my intelligence, Vicky. I have friends at every tech blog in the country. Your cleanup crew was impressive, but not quite fast enough. Trevor's smug satisfaction was palpable, even through the phone. I'm curious, does he know who you really are? Or are you playing dress-up, slumming it with the common folk? The surge of protective rage that rose in Victoria surprised her with its intensity. Stay away from them, Trevor. This is between you and me. Her voice dropped to a dangerous register, a tone her board members knew preceded ruthless action. Trevor laughed, the sound grating against her nerves. Now that's interesting. The great Victoria Hayes actually caring about someone other than herself. I wasn't sure it was possible. He paused, letting the moment stretch uncomfortably. Tell you what, back off on the Jensen project, let Matthews Energy take the European market, and I'll make sure these photos never see wider distribution. Simple business arrangement between old friends. The blackmail attempt was so blatant it was almost laughable. But the stakes, Jack and Emma's privacy, their peaceful existence, sobered her instantly. You have 48 hours to reconsider that position before I destroy your company. The Jensen project isn't just market share on Trevor. It's the future of energy storage, and you know it. Victoria ended the call before he could respond, her hands shaking with fury. She sat in her darkened office, the city lights painting patterns across her desk. Trevor had always been ambitious, ruthless even, but this crossed into new territory. He'd discovered her vulnerability, not financial or technological, but personal, and moved immediately to exploit it. The Trevor she'd once thought she loved had never existed. A text message illuminated her phone. Unknown number again, but not Trevor this time. I know I asked for space, but Emma keeps asking about you. She misses Tori. Jack's message, brief and careful, cracked something in Victoria's chest. Below it, a photo, Emma holding up a science fair ribbon, beaming with pride. First place, Victoria stared at the image, the small triumph, somehow more significant than any corporate victory she'd achieved. She texted back after careful consideration. Tell her congratulations from me. I miss her too. And you, the admission felt dangerous and necessary, a truth she couldn't hold back. Jack's response came quickly. Maybe we could talk this weekend. I'm still processing everything, but Emma's been drawing pictures of you every day. Seems wrong to keep you apart because of adult complications. Relief flooded through Victoria, followed immediately by anxiety. Trevor's threat loomed large, the 48-hour deadline ticking in her mind. Would meeting with Jack put him and Emma at greater risk, or would staying away simply punish them all for her deception and Trevor's malice Saturday? Your place or mine, she hit send before she could overthink it, then followed quickly with another message. That came out wrong. I meant, where would you be comfortable meeting? Jack's response made her smile for the first time in days. Neutral territory might be best. The playground where we went that first weekend, knew Emma would love it. The playground, where she'd first watched Jack with his daughter, first felt that unexpected pull toward their simple, authentic connection. Perfect, I'll be there. No driver, no security, no CEO trappings, just me. It was a promise to herself as much as to him. The next morning brought new complications. Victoria's security chief entered her office without appointment, his expression grave. Ms. Hayes, we've detected surveillance on Mr. Miller and his daughter. Not media professional, possibly corporate espionage. They were followed to school yesterday and back to their apartment. Victoria's blood ran cold. Trevor, it had to be. He was gathering leverage, watching for patterns, weaknesses. Are they in danger? Her voice remained steady, though her pulse raced. Not immediate physical danger, but their privacy has been compromised. We've established counter-surveillance, but haven't intervened directly per your instructions to remain invisible. The security chief's training kept any judgment from his voice, but Victoria heard the unspoken question. At what point would she authorize more direct protection? Keep watching. If anyone approaches them, I want to know immediately. And I want profiles on whoever Trevor has hired. Full background capabilities. Known associates. Victoria made the decision instantly. She would not let Trevor's games endanger Jack and Emma, even if it meant revealing her own protective measures. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of strategic meetings, investor calls, and preparation for Saturday. Victoria found herself distracted during board discussions, her mind wandering to the playground, to Emma's smile, to Jack's honest eyes now clouded with doubt because of her deception. Friday afternoon, Trevor called again. Time's up, Vicky. What's it going to be? The Jensen project or your little secret goes public? His confidence grated against her nerves. Victoria had prepared for this moment, gaming out scenarios with her executive team without revealing the personal stakes. I have a counter-offer, Trevor. She kept her voice professionally pleasant, as though discussing a routine business matter. Matthews Energy has been struggling with manufacturing scale-up. Your prototype works in the lab but can't be mass-produced cost-effectively. My engineers confirmed it last week. Trevor's silence confirmed her intelligence was accurate. She continued pressing her advantage. Hayes Technologies will license certain manufacturing processes to Matthews Energy, not the core technology, but enough to solve your production bottleneck. In exchange, you forget you ever saw any photos of my personal life, and we establish clear boundaries for competition going forward. The offer was generous on its face, solving Trevor's most pressing problem while protecting her privacy. But Victoria knew the manufacturing license would bind Matthews Energy to Hayes Technologies in subtle ways, creating dependencies that would benefit her company long-term. Even in personal crisis, she remained the strategic genius who had built an empire. You always were 2 steps ahead, Vicky. Trevor's voice held reluctant admiration. Fine. Send over the licensing agreement. But don't think this makes us friends. I haven't forgotten how you left things between us. Victoria nearly laughed at his revisionist history. Their breakup had been entirely his doing. His inability to believe in her vision, his resentment of her growing success. But correcting him served no purpose now. The agreement will be with your legal team within the hour. And Trevor, if I ever hear you've been watching Jack and Emma again, the deal is void, and I will bury your company so deep even your grandchildren won't find the remains. She ended the call. Satisfaction warming her chest. One crisis averted. Saturday morning dawned clear and cool, perfect autumn weather for a playground visit. Victoria dressed with uncharacteristic indecision, trying on and discarding outfits that felt too corporate, too casual, too calculated. She finally settled on jeans, a simple sweater, and flats similar to what she'd worn that first day with Jack and Emma when she'd been Tory without complications. She dismissed her driver for the day, opting instead for a rideshare that dropped her 2 blocks from the playground. The walk allowed her to settle her thoughts, prepare for whatever reception awaited her. As the playground came into view, she spotted them immediately, Jack pushing Emma on the swings, the little girl's delighted laughter carrying across the park. Victoria hesitated at the entrance, suddenly uncertain. Jack looked up, their eyes meeting across the distance. He said something to Emma, who turned and saw Victoria. The child's face lit up with pure joy as she jumped from the swing midair, racing across the playground with abandon. Tory. Emma crashed into Victoria's legs, wrapping her arms around them with complete trust and affection. You came back. I knew you would. Daddy said you might be too busy with your important job, but I told him you promised, and you don't break promises. The unconditional welcome broke something open in Victoria's chest. She knelt to Emma's level, enveloping the small body in a genuine hug. I missed you so much. And look at you, a first-place scientist. I'm so proud of you. The words came easily, honestly, unplanned, and unscripted. Jack approached more slowly, his expression guarded but not hostile. His hands were shoved deep in his pockets, a physical manifestation of his emotional reservation. Hey. He stopped a few feet away, maintaining a careful distance that hadn't existed between them before. Hey, yourself. Victoria straightened Emma, still clinging to her hand. Thank you for suggesting this, for letting me see her. The gratitude was sincere, the acknowledgement that he controlled access to his daughter appropriate. Jack nodded slightly. She talks about you constantly, draws pictures of the three of us. He glanced at Emma, who was now tugging Victoria toward the climbing structure. I told her you had a different name than we thought, that you run a big company. She asked if that meant you could buy the whole playground. Kids have interesting priorities. The observation broke some of the tension, drawing a small smile from Victoria. What did you tell her? She allowed Emma to pull her along, Jack falling into step beside them. That having money doesn't change who someone is inside. That we like people for their hearts, not their bank accounts. His eyes met hers briefly. I'm still figuring out if I believe that myself. The honesty was refreshing, painful as it was. Victoria watched Emma scramble up the climbing structure, her small face determined. I never meant to deceive you, Jack. That first night at the restaurant, it was just so nice to be seen as a person, not a bank account or a business connection. And then one omission led to another, and suddenly I was living two lives. Jack leaned against the railing, watching his daughter navigate the playground equipment. You know what bothers me most? It's not the money. It's not even really the lane, though, that hurt. He turned to face her fully. It's that you didn't trust me enough to believe I'd see past the billions to the woman underneath. You made that choice for me, decided what I could and couldn't handle. The observation struck Victoria with its accuracy. In protecting herself from potential rejection, she'd robbed Jack of agency, of the opportunity to know her fully and make his own informed decision. I was afraid. The admission cost her vulnerability, never coming easily. Not of you wanting my money, but of you not wanting me, once you knew what comes with it, the public scrutiny, the corporate politics, the constant demands. My world has destroyed every relationship I've ever had. Jack considered this, his eyes thoughtful. So instead, you destroyed it yourself before I got the chance. There was no accusation in his tone, just a quiet understanding that made Victoria's chest ache. When you put it that way, I sound like a coward. She attempted a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Maybe I am in this one area. I can face down hostile takeovers and market crashes without blinking. But the thought of losing you and Emma, she trailed off, the vulnerability too raw to fully articulate. Emma called from the top of the climbing structure. Daddy Torrey, look how high I am. Both adults instinctively looked up, their faces mirroring concern and pride at her achievement. Be careful, sweetheart. Jack's focus shifted entirely to his daughter, the parent in him momentarily overriding all other concerns. As Emma began her careful descent, he spoke without looking at Victoria. I'm not saying I have answers here. Your world and mine are so different, I'm not sure how they could ever fit together. But Emma needs stability, consistency. She's already lost one mother figure. The implication was clear: if Victoria remained in their lives, it couldn't be halfway. She couldn't disappear for weeks on corporate emergencies, couldn't prioritize Hayes Technologies over Emma's need for dependable adults. The challenge hung between them as Emma reached the bottom of the structure and ran back to them, breathless with accomplishment. Did you see me? I went all the way to the top. Emma's face was flushed with pride, her small hand slipping naturally into Victoria's, as though the past 2 weeks of separation had never happened. Victoria squeezed the tiny fingers gently. I saw you. You were so brave. The simple praise lit up Emma's expression, reinforcing for Victoria just how powerful her presence in the child's life had become, and how careful she needed to be with that influence. They spent the next hour moving through the playground's attractions, a strange family unit bound by tentative reconciliation and a child's unquestioning acceptance. Victoria pushed Emma on the swings. Jack spotted her on the monkey bars, both adults naturally coordinating their efforts without discussing it. To outside observers, they might have appeared to be any normal family enjoying a weekend outing. As Emma ran off to join a group of children building a leaf pile, Jack and Victoria settled on a bench, watching her from a distance. She seems happy, Victoria observed, the simple statement, laden with unspoken questions about their future. Jack nodded, his eyes on his daughter. She is. Kids are resilient, but they also notice everything. He turned slightly toward Victoria. Last night she asked me if you were going to be her new mommy. No pressure or anything. His attempt at humor barely masked the seriousness of the situation. Victoria's breath caught. What did you tell her? The question felt monumental, as though Jack's answer to his daughter might determine the course of all their lives. I told her that you and I are still getting to know each other and that being someone's mommy is a very special job that people need to be ready for. His eyes met hers directly. Then she asked if you have enough money to buy us a house with a backyard for a dog, and I realized I'm raising a tiny gold digger. The joke broke the tension, drawing a genuine laugh from Victoria. Smart kid, knows how to negotiate. Victoria's smile faded into seriousness. Jack, I need you to know something. Since our conversation at your apartment, I've been rethinking a lot of things. How I run my company, how I balance my life, what really matters. Her hands twisted in her lap, uncharacteristically fidgety. Hayes Technologies has consumed me for so long, I'm not sure I know how to be anything else. But being with you and Emma, it's the first time in years I've felt like a complete person, not just a CEO. Jack was quiet for a long moment, processing her words. Victoria Hayes, tech billionaire, taking life lessons from a high school teacher and a 6-year-old. His tone was light, but his eyes were serious. That's a pretty big shift. Are you sure it's real, not just the excitement of something new and different? The question was fair, even necessary. Victoria considered it honestly before answering. When I was in Singapore dealing with market crashes and emergency board meetings, all I could think about was getting back to you and Emma. Not because it was an escape, but because it felt more real than anything else in my life. That terrified me. Still does, if I'm being honest. Jack watched Emma playing with the other children, her laughter carrying across the playground. I wish I could tell you I have all this figured out. That I know how to reconcile Victoria Hayes, billionaire CEO, with Tori, the woman who reads bedtime stories to my daughter with all the right voices. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Victoria had come to recognize as a sign of his inner conflict. But I don't. I just know Emma lights up when she sees you, and despite everything, so do I. The admission, simple and unadorned, pierced through Victoria's carefully constructed defenses. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with an urgent message. She glanced at it automatically, then stiffened. Trevor had broken their agreement, authorizing the release of the museum photos to a major tech blog. The headline was already spreading across social media: Hayes Technologies CEO's secret life with Brooklyn teacher and child. Jack noticed her expression immediately. What is it? His concern was genuine, a reminder of how naturally attentive he was to others' emotional states. Victoria showed him the screen, watching his face pale as he read the headline. I'm so sorry, Jack. I thought I had this contained. This is Trevor Matthews, my ex from years ago now. A competitor. He's been watching us, gathering information. She explained briefly about the blackmail attempt, the licensing agreement, Trevor's apparent decision to break their deal anyway. Jack's expression hardened as he processed this invasion of his and Emma's privacy. So now what? We're news gossip for the tech world. His protective instinct was palpable, his eyes immediately seeking Emma among the playing children. Victoria's strategic mind was already several steps ahead, planning damage control. My PR team will issue a statement acknowledging that I'm dating someone not in the tech sector, emphasizing that our privacy should be respected. No names, no details. The school will need security for a few days. Paparazzi might show up looking for you and Emma. Her corporate response was automatic, efficient, and entirely wrong for the moment as she realized from Jack's darkening expression. Is that how you handle everything, with PR teams and security detail? His voice was quiet but tense. This isn't a corporate crisis, Victoria. This is our lives, my daughter's life. The use of her full name rather than Tori wasn't lost on Victoria. She'd slipped back into CEO mode at the first sign of trouble, confirming Jack's worst fears about their different worlds. You're right, I'm sorry. She forced herself to slow down, to think like Jack's partner rather than Hayes Technologies' leader. What do you want to do? This affects you and Emma more than me. I'm used to public scrutiny. Jack stood, his posture rigid with stress. I need to get Emma home, away from here before any reporters show up. His protective instinct overrode all other considerations. As for what happens next, I honestly don't know. This is exactly what I was afraid of when I found out who you really are. Our worlds colliding, hurting the people I care about. Victoria felt the distance between them expanding again, all the progress of their playground reunion threatened by Trevor's vindictive action. Let me come with you. We can talk about this, figure it out together. The plea was unlike her usual decisive commands, a request rather than an expectation. Jack hesitated, torn between his desire to protect Emma from all complications and his recognition that excluding Victoria from decisions would only replicate the dynamic he'd criticized her for earlier. Okay, but not to our apartment. Too obvious if someone's looking. He thought for a moment. The school? My classroom? I have keys and no one would expect us there on a weekend. The solution was practical, showing Jack's ability to think clearly even under stress. Victoria nodded, relieved he wasn't shutting her out completely. I'll call for a car with tinted windows, less conspicuous than arriving in my usual town car. The compromise felt right, using her resources without flaunting them. As they gathered Emma from her play, explaining they needed to leave for a special surprise, Victoria's phone rang again. Megan with news she needed to hear immediately. She stepped a few paces away to take the call, keeping Jack and Emma in her sightline. We have a bigger problem than the photos. Megan's voice was tight with urgency. Trevor's made a move. He's contacted 3 of our board members with an unofficial takeover proposal. He's using the media distraction about your personal life to make his play. The board's calling an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Victoria's mind raced, corporate strategy and personal crisis colliding. The timing wasn't coincidental. Trevor had orchestrated this attack precisely when she was most vulnerable, most distracted by personal matters. He'd always been ruthlessly opportunistic, using any advantage without moral qualms. Assemble the executive team. I need defensive scenarios prepared before that board meeting. And Megan, make sure our counterintelligence unit is activated. I want to know every conversation Trevor has had with our board members, every promise he's made. Victoria's voice was steel, the CEO fully present despite the playground setting. Jack approached with Emma, having collected their belongings. Ready? His eyes questioned the phone call, sensing its importance. Victoria ended the call, compartmentalizing the corporate crisis to focus on the personal one. The car will be here in 5 minutes. She knelt to Emma's level, keeping her voice light despite the tension thrumming through her body. Ready for a secret adventure to Daddy's classroom? Emma's eyes widened with excitement, blissfully unaware of the adult complications swirling around her. Can we write on the whiteboard? Daddy never lets me touch his special markers. Her innocent enthusiasm was a stark contrast to the high-stakes maneuvering Victoria had just engaged in. I think that could be arranged, just this once. Jack's attempt at normalcy for his daughter's sake tugged at Victoria's heart. Despite everything, his first priority remained Emma's well-being and happiness. The car arrived, an unmarked SUV with tinted windows rather than Victoria's usual luxury town car. As they settled inside, Emma between them in the back seat, Victoria felt worlds colliding in ways she couldn't control. Her corporate empire threatened by Trevor's machinations. Her personal happiness hanging by a thread as Jack confronted the realities of her public profile. Everything she valued, everything she had built or hoped to build, suddenly precarious. Jack's hand found hers across the back seat, a silent acknowledgement that whatever came next, they would face it together, at least for now. The simple human connection grounded Victoria amid the chaos, reminding her why this fight, unlike any corporate battle she'd waged, truly mattered. This wasn't about market share or technological superiority. This was about something far more valuable and infinitely more fragile, the possibility of family, of belonging, of love, without calculation or agenda. As the car navigated Brooklyn streets toward Westside High School, Victoria made a silent vow. She would not let Trevor take this from her. Not her company, and not these 2 people who had somehow become essential to her happiness. For the first time in her career, Victoria Hayes would fight not just to win, but to protect something that couldn't be measured in billions. Westside High School stood empty and silent on Saturday afternoon, its hallways echoing with the weekend absence of teenage energy. Jack led them through side doors with his faculty key, Emma skipping ahead with the unbridled excitement of accessing forbidden territory during off hours. The classroom revealed Jack's professional world walls, adorned with literary quotes, student essays, displayed with pride, a wrestling tournament bracket penciled on one corner of the whiteboard. Victoria absorbed these details hungrily, connecting them to the man she'd come to care for. This space represented the other half of Jack, the dedicated educator who shaped young minds, the respected coach who built character through sport. His territory, his domain of expertise, far from the gleaming corporate towers where she reigned. Emma made a beeline for the whiteboard, eyeing the colored markers with covetous enthusiasm. Can I draw now, Daddy? Please, her innocent obliviousness to the adult tension provided momentary relief from the pressure building around them. Jack found a clean section of the board. Just here, okay? These notes are from Monday's class. His gentle boundaries with his daughter spoke volumes about his parenting style, firm, but kind, structured, yet allowing for joy. As Emma happily began creating a colorful masterpiece, Jack gestured Victoria toward his desk. Might as well be comfortable. This could take a while. The deliberate casualness of his tone barely masked the gravity of their situation. Victoria perched on the edge of his desk, taking in the organized chaos of an English teacher's workspace dog-eared novels, essays awaiting grades, a coffee mug proclaiming, "To be or not to be," with Shakespeare's silhouette. Her phone buzzed continuously with crisis alerts, each one demanding immediate attention. She silenced it without looking a decision that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. So, your ex-boyfriend is trying to take over your company and using us as pawns in his corporate chess game. Jack's summary cut through pretense, naming their reality with characteristic directness. And now my daughter's picture is probably trending on tech Twitter. Welcome to dating Victoria Hayes. The bitter edge in his voice stung, but Victoria recognized the fear beneath it. Fear for Emma, fear for their privacy, fear for the simple life he'd built being irrevocably altered. I never wanted this for you, Jack. Either of you. If I could undo Trevor's vindictiveness, I would in a heartbeat. Her sincerity was absolute, her regret palpable. Jack leaned against a student desk, watching Emma draw with one eye while focusing on Victoria with the other. The thing is, this isn't just Trevor. It's your world. Even if we solve this immediate crisis, there will be others. Your life comes with spotlights. Mine needs shadows for Emma to grow up normal. He ran his hand through his hair, the familiar gesture of frustration and concern. I don't know how to reconcile those realities. Victoria felt the weight of his words, their painful truth. You're right. My world comes with complications I can't eliminate. Being with me means some level of public interest, security concerns, wealth disparities. All I can promise is that I'll do everything in my power to shield you both, to create as much normalcy as possible. Her voice softened vulnerability, replacing her usual corporate confidence. But I can't promise perfect privacy or a completely ordinary life. Not if I'm in it. The stark honesty hung between them as Emma approached, proudly displaying marker-stained hands. Look, I drew us at the playground. Her artistic rendering showed three stack figures holding hands beneath a yellow sun, simple, pure, idealized. The adult's eyes met over her head, the child's innocent depiction of their relationship highlighting everything at stake. Emma's face suddenly scrunched in confusion as she studied Victoria more closely. Are you sad? You look like my friend Zoe when her bunny died. The perceptiveness of children, their ability to see through adult facades to emotional truths, never ceased to amaze Victoria. I'm just worried about some grown-up problems, sweetheart. Victoria kept her tone gentle, unwilling to burden Emma with adult complexities. But seeing your beautiful picture makes me feel much better. Emma considered this explanation, then nodded with the gravity of a child accepting partial truths. Daddy says art helps with feelings. That's why he reads poems when he's sad about Mommy. Her casual reference to Jack's grief, so naturally integrated into her understanding of her father, caught Victoria off guard. Jack cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with this glimpse into his private coping mechanisms. Emma, why don't you draw another picture? This time maybe of your science fair project. He redirected his daughter with practiced ease, though his eyes remained troubled when they returned to Victoria. Once Emma was again absorbed in her artistic endeavors, Jack lowered his voice. Look, I need to know something. His intensity demanded Victoria's full attention. Is this us worth fighting for to you? Not just a novelty break from boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. Because Emma's already attached, and I can't let her heart get broken if this is just an exciting detour for you. The question cut to the core of Victoria's intentions, her commitment, her understanding of what building a life with Jack and Emma would truly require. She'd faced hostile takeovers and market crashes with unflinching determination, but this question demanded a different kind of courage, emotional honesty, without strategic calculation. When I'm with you and Emma, I feel like myself for the first time in years. Not Victoria Hayes, CEO, but just me. The person I might have been if success hadn't required becoming someone harder, colder, more isolated. Her hands gripped the edge of the desk, anchoring herself. This isn't a novelty, Jack. It's a revelation. And yes, it's absolutely worth fighting for, even if that fight looks different from any corporate battle I've waged before. Jack studied her face, searching for any hint of performance or calculation. Finding none, some of the tension left his shoulders. Okay then, if we're going to do this, really do this, we need a plan. Not just for the immediate crisis, but for the long term. How we handle the press, how we protect Emma, how we navigate the billion-dollar elephant in the room. The shift was subtle but significant, from you to we, from individual crisis management to collaborative problem solving. Victoria felt something loosen in her chest, hope threading through the anxiety of the past hours. My company's PR team will want to issue sanitized statements, control the narrative. But this isn't just my story to manage. What do you want, Jack? What would make you and Emma feel secure? Jack's surprise at being consulted was evident, another reminder of how differently their worlds operated. I want Emma's face kept completely out of the media. I want her school left alone. I want her to have as normal a childhood as possible, regardless of who her father is dating. His protective priorities were clear and non-negotiable. And I want the truth told, not some manufactured narrative. If we're going to be under scrutiny, at least let it be for something real. The authenticity of his request resonated with something long buried in Victoria, a weariness with carefully crafted public personas, with strategic omissions and calculated revelations. The corporate playbook suddenly seemed hollow compared to Jack's straightforward integrity. I can work with that. Victoria felt strategic paths forming in her mind, not for market domination, but for protecting what mattered most. No pose photos, no exclusive interviews. A simple statement acknowledging we're in a relationship, requesting privacy, especially regarding Emma. An enhanced security for the school and your apartment building, discreet but effective. Jack nodded slowly, processing the necessary adjustments to their lives. And what about Trevor, your company? That emergency board meeting tomorrow? His awareness of her professional challenges touched Victoria. He was equally concerned about her world as she was about his. Victoria's phone vibrated again, the screen lighting up with Megan's name. The corporate crisis wouldn't wait, regardless of her personal revelations. I need to take this. She answered, professional mode engaging automatically. What's the latest, Megan? The news poured through the speaker. Trevor had secured tentative support from 2 board members, using Victoria's personal distractions as evidence she was losing focus on the company. The stock had dipped 3 points in after-hours trading following the photo leak. Institutional investors were calling, demanding reassurance. Victoria listened, calculating moves and counter-moves with practiced efficiency. Have legal prepared documentation of Trevor's blackmail attempt. We'll demonstrate this as personal vindictiveness, not legitimate business strategy, and schedule one-on-ones with each board member before tomorrow's meeting. I'll handle them personally. The decisive CEO was fully present, even as her eyes remained on Jack and Emma. Ending the call, she found Jack watching her with a new expression, not judgment or disapproval, but curiosity and perhaps a hint of admiration. So that's Victoria Hayes in action. The difference was illuminating. His observation held no criticism, merely acknowledgement of the duality she navigated. Not so different from watching you coach, I imagine. Different arena, same leadership principles. Victoria's comparison sought common ground between their disparate worlds. I need to handle this crisis, Jack. Trevor's using my relationship with you as leverage to attack my company, and I won't let him hurt either the people or the organization I care about. Jack considered this, his English teacher's mind drawing literary parallels. The personal and political intertwined as always. His smile held unexpected warmth. So what's the plan, CEO Hayes? His use of her title carried no mockery, only acceptance of this essential aspect of her identity. Victoria felt something shift between them, a new understanding, a bridge forming between their worlds rather than a wall. I need to go to the office, prepare for tomorrow's board meeting. The timing couldn't be worse, but she hesitated, unused to having personal commitments influence professional decisions. Go. Jack's permission came without hesitation. Emma and I will head home, lie low for the weekend. His practical acceptance of her responsibilities touched Victoria deeply. Just keep us in the loop, no more disappearing acts. The reasonable request highlighted her previous failing. I promise. Regular updates no matter how busy things get. And once this immediate crisis is contained, we'll figure out a more sustainable balance. The commitment felt momentous, a declaration of intent to integrate her worlds rather than compartmentalize them. As Victoria prepared to leave, Emma abandoned her drawings and ran to her arms outstretched for a hug. Are you coming to our house later for movies? The hopeful question carried the weight of a child testing relationship reliability after previous disappointment. Victoria knelt to Emma's level honesty, trumping easy promises. Not tonight, sweetheart. I have some important work to finish. But I'll call before bedtime and maybe we can do something special tomorrow afternoon once my meeting is done. The balanced response, neither abandoning responsibilities nor dismissing Emma's desires, felt like growth, a new skill developing in real time. Emma's small face grew serious, processing this information with surprising maturity. Is it because of the bad man Daddy told me about? The one who's trying to take your company? Her interpretation of Jack's simplified explanation demonstrated both her intelligence and the inevitable filtering of adult complexities through a child's understanding. Victoria glanced at Jack, uncertain how to respond to this unexpected awareness. Jack nodded, slightly encouraging honesty at an appropriate level. Yes, Emma, someone is trying to take something important from me, and I need to stop him. Just like if someone tried to take your science fair ribbon, you'd stand up for yourself, right? Emma nodded vigorously, moral certainty blazing in her eyes. You should tell him that's not nice, and he needs to stop being mean. The straightforward childhood justice system drew a genuine laugh from both adults. Momentary relief in the tension. I'll definitely tell him that. Victoria hugged Emma tightly, then stood to face Jack. Their eyes held a silent conversation, concern, resolve, connection, despite the challenges ahead. Jack stepped forward, and in a move that surprised Victoria, pulled her into a quick embrace. Go save your company. We'll be here when you're done. His support offered, despite his own reservations about her world, filled Victoria with determination, unlike any corporate motivation she'd previously experienced. This wasn't about market share or stock prices. This was about protecting the possibility of a future with these two people who had inexplicably become essential to her happiness. The night before the emergency board meeting passed in a strategic blur. Victoria worked through the night at Hayes Tower, her executive team rallying around her with loyalty that Trevor had clearly underestimated. By dawn, she had spoken personally with every board member, presenting evidence of Trevor's blackmail attempt and outlining a clear vision for the company's future that made his opportunistic offer appear shallow and vindictive. True to her promise, she texted Jack regular updates, brief but specific messages acknowledging both her progress and her thoughts of him and Emma. Each response from him, supportive despite the late hours, strengthened her resolve to find a sustainable balance between her worlds. The emergency board meeting Sunday morning became the battlefield Victoria had prepared for. Trevor's smug confidence faded as he realized the support he thought he'd secured had evaporated overnight. Victoria stood at the head of the conference table, her expression carved from marble as she addressed the assembled directors. Matthews Energy's offer isn't about shareholder value or technological synergy. It's about personal vendetta. Trevor Matthews attempted to blackmail me using photos of my private life, threatening to expose my relationship unless I conceded market territory. Her calm recitation of facts stripped Trevor's actions of business legitimacy, reducing them to petty revenge. Victoria activated the boardroom screen displaying time-stamped records of his communications. The evidence speaks for itself. Trevor Matthews didn't approach this board with a legitimate business proposal. He attempted to leverage personal information for corporate gain, a tactic that violates not only ethical standards, but potentially several laws regarding corporate espionage and blackmail. The board members' expressions shifted from concern to disapproval, not of Victoria's relationship, but of Trevor's tactics. The chairman cleared his throat, addressing Trevor directly. Mr. Matthews, I believe we've heard enough. Your offer is unanimously rejected. I suggest you leave before we consider legal action regarding these documented blackmail attempts. As security escorted him from the building, Trevor turned back with one final barb. This isn't over, Vicky. You can't have everything, the company and your little makeshift family. Something will break eventually. Victoria met his gaze without flinching. You never understood me, Trevor. Not then, not now. I don't want everything, I want what matters. and I'll protect it with every resource at my disposal. The distinction felt profound, a crystallization of values that had been evolving since that first dinner with Jack and Emma. After the board meeting concluded with unanimous support for Victoria's leadership, she left the tower feeling physically exhausted but mentally clear. The crisis had been averted, but the larger challenge remained how to truly integrate her worlds to be both Victoria Hayes' tech visionary and Tori, the woman Jack and Emma had come to care for. When Victoria arrived at Jack's apartment that afternoon, she found Emma waiting by the window, face pressed against the glass, watching for her arrival. The sight of such eager anticipation, someone simply happy to see her, not for what she could provide, but just for her presence, filled Victoria with unfamiliar warmth. Emma flung open the door before Victoria could knock. "You won. Did you tell the bad man to stop being mean?" Her childish understanding of corporate warfare made Victoria smile despite her exhaustion. "I did exactly that. And guess what? It worked." Victoria followed Emma into the apartment where Jack was preparing lunch in the small kitchen. The domesticity of the scene Sunday afternoon cooking the apartment, filled with Emma's artwork and books, struck Victoria as infinitely more appealing than her own immaculate mansion. Jack looked up from chopping vegetables, his expression warm, but still carrying traces of caution. "Congratulations, CEO. The board stood with you." His question sought confirmation of what he already knew from her texts, but also probed for her emotional state after the confrontation. Unanimously, Victoria accepted the glass of water he offered their fingers, brushing in a moment of connection. Trevor underestimated how transparent his motives were, and how loyal my team is. She settled at the kitchen counter, watching Jack's confident movements around the small space. But this isn't the end. Trevor won't give up easily, and there will be other challenges. "Being with me comes with complications." Jack continued preparing the lunch, his hands steady and sure. "Life comes with complications, Victoria." His use of her full name rather than Tori felt significant, an acceptance of her complete identity, not just the parts he'd first been shown. The question isn't whether there will be challenges, but whether they're worth facing together. The simple wisdom of his statement struck Victoria deeply. In her world of strategic planning and risk assessment, relationships had always been evaluated through cost-benefit analysis. Jack offered a different metric, not whether the difficulties could be eliminated, but whether the connection was valuable enough to make them worthwhile. "I think they are. Worth facing together." Victoria's response came without calculation, a truth she felt rather than strategized. "But we need a better approach than crisis management, something sustainable for all three of us." Jack nodded, setting plates on the small dining table where Emma was already seated, swinging her legs impatiently. "I've been thinking about that too." He gestured for Victoria to join them the family meal, a stark contrast to her usual solitary dinners. "We need boundary, structure, communication. Like any family, figuring things out." The casual use of family to include her sent a wave of emotion through Victoria. She'd built an empire, but never expected to be part of something as simple and profound as this: shared meals, everyday concerns, belonging. Over the coming weeks, they developed systems for navigating their complex relationship. Victoria restructured her executive team, delegating operational decisions that had previously consumed her attention. She instituted family hours when her phone was silenced, except for true emergencies, created space for Emma's school events, and maintained regular communication with Jack about schedule changes. Jack too made adjustments, accepting enhanced security measures without resentment, adjusting to occasional public recognition, even attending a Hayes Technologies function where he charmed board members with his unpretentious intelligence. The wealth disparity remained a sensitive issue, but open communication prevented these moments from festering into resentment. 3 months after Trevor's failed takeover attempt, Victoria proposed a more radical change. She invited Jack and Emma to her office on a Saturday morning, the first time they had visited her professional domain. Emma marveled at the floor-to-ceiling windows and executive toys on Victoria's desk, while Jack observed the command center of her empire with quiet assessment. "I've been working on something," Victoria explained, displaying a presentation on her private conference room screen. "It's a restructuring plan for Hayes Technologies leadership." Her nervousness was uncharacteristic, revealing how much their opinion mattered to her. "I'm appointing Megan as Chief Operating Officer while retaining my position as CEO and Chairwoman." Jack studied the organizational chart, immediately grasping the implications. You're creating space, delegating the daily operations while maintaining strategic control. His understanding of her intention without her having to explain it explicitly demonstrated how well he'd come to know her. I've been running this company like a one-woman show for too long. Victoria indicated the efficiencies the new structure would create. This isn't just about us, though. That's part of it. It's about building sustainability, institutional strength. The company shouldn't depend entirely on me, and I shouldn't depend entirely on it for my identity. The business press will say, "You're losing focus," Jack observed, not critically but realistically, "that your priorities have shifted away from the company. Let them." Victoria's dismissal of potential criticism surprised even herself. 6 months ago, such judgments would have devastated her. Now secure in both her corporate vision and personal choices, she found herself immune to such concerns. "I know my value to the company and beyond it. Do you think it's a mistake?" Jack considered the question seriously, respecting her enough not to offer blind support. "I think it's evolution. Growth." He gestured toward Emma, who was spinning in Victoria's executive chair, blissfully unaware of the significant conversation happening nearby. "Some things matter more than others. The trick is figuring out which is which." The restructuring announcement generated exactly the business press speculation Jack had predicted. Questions about Victoria's priorities and commitment filled financial news cycles for several days. But the stock held steady, investors remained confident, and the new leadership structure quickly proved its efficiency. Victoria found herself with something she hadn't experienced in years: balanced perspective, time to breathe. 4 months after the restructuring and as spring softened into summer, Victoria invited Jack and Emma to dinner at her home. Not their usual casual visit, but something more formal, more purposeful. The mansion had undergone subtle transformations over the preceding months. Previously showcased formal spaces softened with comfortable furniture walls, once adorned with investment art, now featuring Emma's framed creations, alongside sophisticated pieces, a bedroom converted into a library filled with Jack's beloved classics. Emma raced through rooms she'd come to know well, heading straight for the garden, where Victoria had arranged a special surprise. Jack followed more slowly, noting the changes with quiet appreciation. "You've been busy," he observed, gesturing toward a newly installed reading nook filled with pillows and books at Emma's height. "What's the occasion?" Victoria led him toward the garden, uncharacteristic nervousness evident in her typically confident demeanor. "I wanted to ask you both something important." The formality of her tone caused Jack's eyebrow to rise in question, but he followed without pressing for details. The garden glowed with fairy lights strung through trees, creating a magical atmosphere that drew an audible gasp from Emma. A small table had been set for three, complete with Emma's favorite star-shaped pasta and chocolate cake identical to that first night's dessert. The symbolic recreation of their first meeting wasn't lost on Jack, whose expression softened with recognition. "What's all this for?" Emma twirled beneath the lights, delighted by the transformation of the already beautiful garden into an enchanted space seemingly designed for a child's imagination. Victoria knelt to Emma's level, conscious of including her in this significant moment. "I wanted to ask you and your dad a very important question." Her voice carried uncharacteristic uncertainty, vulnerability, rarely displayed in her corporate life. "The past 6 months have been the happiest of my life because of you two. I never knew what I was missing until that night you both sat at my table at Harvest Restaurant." Jack's expression grew serious as he recognized the gravity of the moment, moving closer to place a supportive hand on Emma's shoulder. Victoria continued, addressing them both equally. "I've been thinking about how much time we spend going back and forth between our homes, how complicated our schedules get, how we're building one life across two spaces." Her carefully prepared speech faltered slightly as emotion threatened her composure. "What I'm trying to ask is, would you consider moving in here, making this your home too?" The question hung in the evening air, more consequential than any merger proposal or acquisition offer Victoria had ever extended. Emma looked to her father, instinctively understanding that while her opinion mattered, this adult decision required his approval. Jack's expression remained unreadable for a moment that stretched Victoria's nerves to breaking point. Then he asked the question that cut to the heart of everything. "Why here? Why not us offering you space in our apartment?" The query wasn't confrontational, but essential, testing whether Victoria truly understood what integration meant, whether her proposal stemmed from genuine desire for shared life or merely convenient absorption of them into her world. Victoria had anticipated this crucial challenge. I considered that. Her honesty acknowledged the validity of his question. But your apartment is near Emma's school, your work, the community you've built. This place is just a house I bought to impress people who never really mattered. She gestured to the mansion behind them. It only started feeling like a home when you two began spending time here. I'm not asking you to join my world. I'm asking if we can build something new together using the resources we all bring. The distinction resonated with Jack, whose expression softened further. And if I said this is too much too soon, his question tested boundaries, exploring Victoria's flexibility rather than rejecting her proposal outright. Then we find another solution, a new place altogether or more time at your apartment, or whatever feels right. Victoria's immediate willingness to adapt to prioritize their comfort over her preference demonstrated growth that didn't escape Jack's notice. I'm not attached to this house, Jack. I'm attached to you and Emma. The space is just details we can figure out together. Emma, who had been following this adult exchange with unusual patience, finally interjected with characteristic directness. Does this mean Tori would be with us every day? No more saying goodbye at night. Her question distilled the proposal to its emotional essence, consistent presence rather than intermittent visits. Victoria nodded, emotion tightening her throat. That's the idea, sweetheart. If you and your dad want that too, the vulnerability of the moment, placing her deepest hopes in the hands of a 6-year-old and the man she'd grown to love, contrasted sharply with the calculated risks of her business world. Emma's face lit with immediate certainty. Yes, we should all live together and be a family. Her enthusiastic endorsement, while heartwarming, didn't distract Victoria from Jack's still thoughtful expression. His decision carried greater complexity, adult concerns about independence, identity, and the power dynamics inherent in their unusual situation. Jack stepped away slightly, creating space for careful consideration. You know what concerns me most about this proposal? His tone remained gentle despite the serious question. Not the wealth difference, not the media attention, not even the practical adjustments. It's that Emma's getting attached to the idea of us as a permanent family, and we haven't actually discussed what that means long term. The observation cut to the heart of unspoken hopes and fears between them. They had carefully navigated the integration of their daily lives, but sidestepped explicit conversations about future commitment. Victoria recognized the crucial juncture they'd reached. No more comfortable ambiguity, no more present-focused pragmatism, without addressing tomorrow's possibilities. You're right, Victoria abandoned prepared statements for raw honesty. I should have started with the more important question. She moved closer, taking both his hands in hers. Jack Miller, I love you. Not just because you've shown me a life beyond corporate success, but because you're the most authentic, principled, caring man I've ever known. I love your dedication to your students, your patience with Emma, your unwillingness to be impressed by anything except genuine character. Jack's expression softened further, but Victoria continued, needing to express everything this moment demanded. I love Emma as if she were my own. I know I can never replace her mother, and I would never try. But I want to be a consistent, loving presence in her life, not just now, but always. If living together feels too soon, I understand completely. But I want you both to know that for me, this isn't a trial run or a convenience. It's a commitment to building a life together, however that looks. The unvarnished emotions stripped of corporate calculation or strategic phrasing hung between them. Jack studied Victoria's face, seeing beyond the powerful CEO to the woman who had gradually revealed herself over months of shared experiences, challenges, and quiet moments of connection. We've done everything backward, haven't we? Jack's observation carried no judgment, merely amused recognition of their unconventional path. Most people date, say I love you, discuss commitment, then consider living together. We started with family dinners and parenting discussions, navigated media scandals and corporate takeovers, and now we're finally getting to the "what does this mean for our future" conversation. His characterization drew a relieved laugh from Victoria, tension breaking like storm clouds parting. Emma watched this adult exchange with the solemn attention of a child absorbing important relationship dynamics or unconsciously learning patterns that would shape her own future, understanding of love and commitment. I have conditions. Jack's expression grew serious again, though his hands remained in Victoria's. Not request non-negotiable conditions. His firmness triggered momentary anxiety in Victoria until she recognized the healthy boundary setting of a man who knew his own worth, who wouldn't be subsumed by her wealth or status. Name them. Victoria's immediate acceptance of his terms without defensiveness or negotiation demonstrated her recognition of their equal standing in this relationship despite external power imbalances. Jack listed his requirements with calm certainty. I keep my job. Teaching isn't just what I do, it's who I am. We maintain connections with my community in Brooklyn. Emma needs that grounding. I contribute financially to our household in proportion to my ability, no free rides. His conditions focused on maintaining his identity and dignity, reasonable boundaries that Victoria had anticipated and respected. Then came the unexpected fourth condition delivered with gentle intensity. And I need to know that you're all in, Victoria, not just for now, not just until the novelty wears off or work reclaims your focus. Emma and I come as a package deal for life, no exit strategies or golden parachutes if things get complicated. The corporate metaphors weren't accidental, directly addressing the business mindset Victoria had cultivated for years. He was asking for commitment without hedging investment, without diversification concepts that ran counter to sound business strategy but defined meaningful personal relationships. Victoria answered without hesitation, certainty, replacing earlier nervousness. All in. No exit strategies, no divided attention, no prioritizing corporate success over family needs. I've spent my life building something impressive, but ultimately empty without people to share it with. You and Emma aren't accessories to my success story. You're the point of it all, the reason any of it matters. The declaration settled between them, reshaping their understanding of past and future. Jack's expression transformed caution, giving way to certainty. Then yes, to moving in together, to building this life you're describing, to all of it. His acceptance encompassed Victoria's proposal and expanded beyond it, embracing the fuller commitment she'd articulated. Emma, watching with increasing impatience, finally burst in with practical concerns. Can I bring all my stuffed animals, and will I have my own room? Her priorities drew affectionate laughter from both adults, grounding their emotional moment in the practical realities of family life. The transition happened gradually over the following weeks. Jack and Emma didn't simply move into Victoria's mansion. They transformed it together into a true family home. Emma's room became a creative project they tackled as a trio: purple walls, as she'd insisted, star-shaped lighting fixtures and bookshelves filled with their growing collection of science and adventure stories. Jack converted one of the mansion's formal sitting rooms into a comfortable study where he could grade papers and prepare lessons, maintaining his professional identity even as his personal life evolved. Victoria found herself changed by their presence in ways she hadn't anticipated. She learned to loosen her perfectionism, to find joy in Emma's creative chaos, to value Jack's practical wisdom above corporate accolades. She still led Hayes Technologies with vision and authority, but no longer defined herself exclusively through that role. 1 year after their chance meeting at Harvest Table, Victoria arranged a special anniversary dinner in their garden. The fairy lights remained permanently installed among the trees, casting a warm glow over the table set with the same menu from that first night, including star-shaped pasta for Emma and chocolate cake with a candle. Emma insisted on recreating the original encounter with theatrical precision. I'll be the little girl who needs cake, and Daddy, you be the daddy who promised chocolate. Her direction demonstrated how thoroughly the story of their meeting had become family mythology, a creation narrative treasured and retold. Jack played along, adopting a pleading tone toward an imaginary hostess. Please, just a quick dessert at the bar. It's her birthday, and I promised her the chocolate cake here. His recreation of that pivotal moment drew appreciative laughter from Victoria, who recognized how profoundly that simple act of kindness had altered all their lives. As they enjoyed their meal together, Victoria reached for the small velvet box she'd been carrying for days. She'd considered elaborate proposals, rooftop restaurants, private concerts, exotic vacations, but ultimately recognized that this setting, their home and garden, held the most meaning. Before I forget, I have something for both of you. Victoria passed Emma a small gift-wrapped package. The child tore into it eagerly, revealing a delicate silver bracelet with 3 interlinked charms, a book, a microscope, and a heart. It's us, Emma exclaimed, immediately recognizing the symbols. The book for Daddy, the science thing for me, and the heart for all of us. Her intuitive understanding of the symbolism touched Victoria deeply. That's exactly right. Victoria helped Emma fasten the bracelet around her small wrist. And there's something else. Something I want to ask your dad, but I wanted to ask for your permission first. Would that be okay? Emma nodded solemnly, instinctively understanding the importance of the moment. Jack watched with curious confusion as Victoria retrieved the velvet box from her pocket and knelt beside his chair. Jack Miller, 1 year ago, you sat at my table as a stranger and changed my life completely. You showed me what it means to live with integrity, to love without calculation, to build something meaningful beyond corporate success. She opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band. I want to continue this journey not as CEO and teacher, not as billionaire and single dad, but as partners equals family. Will you marry me? The proposal, unconventional, like everything in their relationship, hung in the garden air. Jack's expression shifted from surprise to something deeper, more profound. Victoria Hayes, tech billionaire, proposing on one knee to a high school teacher, it defied every conventional narrative, yet felt absolutely right. Emma could barely contain herself, bouncing on her toes beside them. Say yes, Daddy, say yes. Her investment in the outcome was total, her face alight with hope. Jack reached out, taking Victoria's hand and pulling her to her feet. I never expected any of this. His voice held wonder rather than doubt. A year ago, I just wanted chocolate cake for my daughter. Now I'm being proposed to by the most remarkable woman I've ever known. His eyes held hers, serious despite his smile. Are you sure, really sure, this isn't just the next logical step in your 5-year plan? Victoria laughed, recognizing his teasing reference to her strategic planning tendencies. No 5-year plan could have predicted you, Jack Miller. You're the variable that changed all my calculations, the factor I never accounted for. And I've never been more certain of anything in my life. She squeezed his hands. So, what's your answer? Jack glanced at Emma, whose anticipation had reached nearly unbearable levels, then back to Victoria. Yes, of course yes. To all of it, marriage, family, our future together. The simplicity of his acceptance matched the directness of her proposal, no qualifications or conditions necessary. Emma erupted in celebration, dancing around the garden as Victoria slipped the ring onto Jack's finger. He pulled her into an embrace, whispering against her hair, "You know this breaks every rule of conventional romance. Aren't I supposed to be the one proposing with a diamond ring?" Victoria smiled against his shoulder. "When have we ever done anything the conventional way? Besides, I thought you appreciated someone who challenges traditional gender roles." Her teasing reference to one of their early literary discussions drew a laugh from him. True enough, Jack examined the platinum band, its subtle engraving catching the fairy lights. "What does it say?" He squinted at the inscription. "Worth fighting for." Victoria watched as recognition dawned in his eyes, the phrase from their conversation in his classroom months ago, when he'd asked if their relationship was worth fighting for to her. "I meant it then, and I mean it even more now." Emma interrupted their moment, tugging at both their hands. "Does this mean Tori will be my mom now?" The question, innocent yet profound, created a momentary pause. Victoria knelt to Emma's level, choosing her words carefully. "It means I'll be your stepmother, which is a very special job. I won't replace your birth mother. She'll always be part of you. But I promise to love you, care for you, and be there for you always. Is that okay with you?" Emma considered this with surprising thoughtfulness. "Can I still call you Tori?" Her practical question cut through potential emotional complexity with childlike directness. "You can call me whatever feels right to you, sweetheart." Victoria brushed Emma's hair from her forehead. "Names aren't as important as what we mean to each other." Emma nodded, decision made. "I'll call you Tori, but you'll be my bonus mom. I heard Zoe call her stepmom that, and I like it better." The term bonus mom brought unexpected tears to Victoria's eyes, the simple acceptance more moving than any corporate achievement. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Jack and Victoria stood in their garden, his arm around her waist as they looked up at the stars visible despite the city lights. "A year ago, I was Victoria Hayes, CEO, period. Nothing else defined me." She leaned into his embrace. "Now I'm so many things, partner, almost wife, bonus mom. And somehow I'm more myself than I've ever been." Jack pressed a kiss to her temple. That's how you know it's right. When adding new identities doesn't diminish you, but expands you, makes you more fully who you were meant to be. His teacher's wisdom, so different from corporate strategy, yet profoundly true, was one of countless reasons she'd fallen in love with him. They had many challenges ahead, integrating their lives, completely navigating their different worlds, building something lasting from an unexpected beginning. But standing there in their garden, Victoria felt a certainty beyond anything in her business experience. The night she was stood up at Harvest Table had seemed like disappointment, embarrassment, wasted time. Instead, it had become the beginning of everything that mattered, proof that sometimes the most significant turning points arrive, disguised as setbacks, and the most valuable connections form when carefully laid plans fall apart. The chocolate cake. The fairy lights, the ring on Jack's finger, Emma's bonus mom declaration, none of it featured in any strategic plan Victoria had ever developed. Yet somehow this unplanned life had become her greatest achievement, this unconventional family, her most valuable asset. As she stood beneath the stars with Jack, Victoria Hayes, billionaire CEO, and soon-to-be wife and stepmother, felt something she'd chased but never quite captured in all her years of corporate success, not just accomplishment, but genuine happiness.